I am Sarah Brown. I am 28 years old. I work in the general affairs department of a fairly large trading company. My boyfriend is Alex Johnson, 2 years my senior. I met him at a club in college, and we have been dating for 8 years. We started considering marriage about 4 to 5 years ago. And both of us have been slowly saving up for it. On my birthday this year, he finally proposed. At a fancy restaurant, enjoying delicious food and wine, Alex snapped his fingers. Then the waiter nodded, the lights dimmed. A spotlight shone only on our table, and he pulled a small box from his inner pocket. Gently opened it. I had such girlish fantasies, but in reality, we were on a camping trip, our shared hobby. In front of the campfire, his favorite pork soup was simmering. And I was drinking my favorite strong canned drink. As the wood in the fire crackled, he rummaged through a bag, pulled out a small box. "This is for you." "What is this?" "It's a ring." "A ring?"
Yeah.
"Marry me." "It's about time we made it official, right?" "I suppose it is about time, yes, I agree." "All right, it's decided then."
Yeah.
Cheers. I was quite drunk at that time. Later, I thought maybe something more could have been done. But such celebrity-like actions wouldn't suit us. Perhaps this type of proposal was just right for us. Sometime after the proposal day, Alex came to greet my parents. "Oh, I'm so nervous." "Think of this as the first challenge and do your best. It's for us after all." "Well, today is my challenge, but next time it's your turn."
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm fully prepared. I'll take today's Alex as a reference. You are cheeky as ever. Blame yourself for falling in love with such a woman. Look, there's my house. All right. I'll put my spirit into it. That's good, but make sure you're well-groomed too. Look, your tie. Saying that, I straightened and tightened his tie. I felt a bit happy, like I was already his wife. But that's a secret from him. My parents' house is a detached house in the suburbs. It has only 4 rooms, but it has a fairly large garden. My father has always loved the outdoors and met my mother while mountain climbing. That influenced me to also enjoy the outdoors, and camping became my hobby. I think it's a regular family. Currently, my father is retired but working at a relative's company. I was excited to join, but it turned out to be a slack job. But getting paid for this, my life is easy and carefree. He even jokes like that. Well, both of my parents are healthy and cheerful, which I tell myself is a good thing. When we arrived at the house, both parents greeted us at the entrance. Alex was still nervous, stuttering even his own name, which he must have said hundreds of times in his life. "Nice to meet you. I'm Alex Johnson." Still, he firmly told my parents, "I would like to marry Sarah." I fell for him all over again, seeing his resolve. My father grinned and said, "Alex, is this really okay for you? If you're fine with this, then by all means, go ahead." What does he mean by this? My father has always been like that. My mother also said, "Sarah is getting married, huh? Once you marry, I'll be very sad." I will be sad without Sarah when I eat salads, get it? She often made a joke song like that. I was at a loss for words. What are they saying, my parents? So, Alex quickly relaxed. And what was supposed to be just a greeting turned into joining us for dinner and then a party. And eventually they were telling him to stay overnight. However, when my mother called Alex's house to say he would stay over, Alex's father answered, "We appreciate the offer, but we must decline. Staying overnight at an unknown house suddenly. And then being potentially charged for something, we can't handle that. Like that, he talked rudely to her. If I remember right, I have heard that Mr. Johnson is the president of a quite large company. Charged for what? Well, I am a president, which means Alex is the son of a president. We often deal with people who try to extort money, which is troublesome. I don't want to associate with such poor, begging characters. Are you saying we are those poor beggars? Her voice was tinged with anger. There is that possibility. All right, I will tell Alex to go home then. Yes, do that please. My mother was furious, exclaiming. Who do you think he is? He had such a terrible attitude. What's wrong? It was awful. I offered kindness by inviting Alex to stay over. But he accused us of extorting money. Then Alex came over. I'm sorry. My parents were once scammed, so they often doubt people's kindness. It's not for you to apologize, Alex. Well, we'll build a good relationship slowly from now. I had a good time today. Take good care of Sarah. My father patted Alex on the shoulder as he apologized. Ultimately, he didn't stay overnight and went back home. At that time, I didn't yet know the real character of his father. And then, it was my turn. Alex's father had built his fortune as an entrepreneur in a single generation. He took a small ironworks passed down from his parents and, through excellent management, turned it into a large machinery manufacturer. Of course, his family home was luxurious. Surrounded by high walls, it was a 3-story reinforced concrete building. Although it was a private house. Seeing such a magnificent house made me feel inferior. Now it's you who are nervous. Alex joked around. Of course, I get nervous too. Look, there it is. Make sure you're well groomed. Yes, thank you. Remaining nervous, I entered the house, greeted Alex's mother who welcomed us, and was shown to the living room. There, Mr. Johnson was seated. Urged by Miss Johnson, I took a seat in front of him. Hello, nice to meet you. My name is Sarah Brown. I am getting married to Alex. It's a pleasure to meet you. Oh, I'm Robert Johnson, Alex's father. Sorry to trouble you coming all this way today. It's futile to say not to be nervous, but try to relax. Yes, thank you. Meeting Alex's father for the first time. He seemed a bit stern and somewhat in a bad mood. Let's cut to the chase. What's your purpose? Purpose, you mean? I'm the president of a large company. As you can see, I have a vast fortune. Is that your goal? I was taken aback. Purpose. The only purpose of marriage I think of is because I love Alex and want to build a happy home together. Yet here he is, conjuring up some far-fetched ulterior motive. No, I haven't thought about anything like that at all. No offense, but what are your parents doing now? My father has retired and then re-employed at a cousin's company, where he is working. I am not quite sure what he does, but he is working happily. My mother is a homemaker and is living well. Hearing this, Mr. Johnson leaned back in his chair with a dismissive air, causing me to frown. I see, but from what I hear, it doesn't sound like a very wealthy life. What is your job? I work in general affairs at a major trading company in New York. General affairs, not much chance for advancement there. Well, yes, that's true. So, you're planning to rely on Alex and me after getting married? Huh? I inadvertently let out a strange noise at his words. What is this man talking about? At that point, something clicked in my mind. I no longer felt like being polite and friendly. What do you mean by that? Mr. Johnson looked down on me and said. Exactly what I said. Your family is poor, and you're scheming to marry my wealthy son to climb the social ladder, right? Your parents also want a son-in-law they can depend on for money to enjoy their old age. Insulting not just me but also my parents? That's intolerable. What did you say? I couldn't help but raise my voice. There's a limit to how much you can belittle people. I could feel my face flushing with anger. Even Alex intervened. Dad, that's too much. Her parents are good people. They welcomed me kindly when I visited to greet them. They're not the type to think about climbing the social ladder or depending on someone. However, his father overpowered the conversation. Be quiet. You're naive, son. Let me handle this. Then let me say something. I cut into their argument. Our family is poor. Sure, we're not rich compared to your family. But we live a decent, average life. And please don't speak ill of my parents. I respect them, and they are honorable people. Oh, calm down, Sarah. Alex tried to intervene, seeing my agitation, but I cut him off just like his father. You, be quiet. At my harsh words, Mr. Johnson glared at me and said, when I say poor, I mean families with less money than ours. Marriage won't work if both parties aren't on the same level. People without money will always expect those with money to provide for them. That's why you will definitely end up doing that too. Am I wrong? You might say it's not like that now, but it will turn out to be true eventually. This Mr. Johnson. Jumping to conclusions. Something in me snapped. Then, that's enough. I understand very well. Please find a wealthy match by yourself. Excuse me. I stood up. Yes, do that. Hey, see her out, she's leaving. Clean this room and entrance after she's gone. While Alex and his mother were flustered, I didn't look back and walked out of the house. Wait a minute. Alex hurried after me. I shouted back in indignation. No. I've had enough. What about that father? Looking down on people like they are beggars, that's the worst. He was truly panicking in response to my fury. Let's try again. Dad was just in a bad mood today. Enough. Why should I be subjected to such things? I wish he would stop belittling people. Calm down, let's just sit and have some tea. Cooling down was the last thing I felt like doing right now. Sorry, but I'm just not in the mood. I'm going home today. Please don't contact me for a while. Sarah. I shook off a clinging Alex and went home alone. After that, he called and emailed me numerous times, but I ignored them. On the day I went home angry, I told my parents everything as soon as I entered the living room. That's a bit harsh. Does my family really look that poor? He said with a face like he was crushing a bitter bug. My mother was appalled. That's terrible. Alex was such a nice person. But this is even worse than that phone call before. So, what about you? Do you think it's okay to break up with Alex? No. I mean, I still like Alex, and I do think about marrying him. I see. Why don't you take a cooling off period and then go see him again? If things still get complicated, I can step in too. Really? Yes, for my dear daughter. It's no big deal. My father was kind and reassuring. Hearing his words, my mother advised. It seems like they don't know much about us, so make sure you talk to them properly. Convinced by my parents, I decided to meet Alex's parents again. I resumed contact with Alex and asked him to arrange another meeting with his parents. He was pleased and quickly set it up. The gong for round 2 sounded. The opponent is formidable. Am I Don Quixote heading towards a giant windmill, or a righteous hero defeating a villain? The visit to Alex's house was set for Saturday on the weekend. If it were a final battle, it would be on a Friday, but for me, it was Saturday. Finally, Saturday arrived. I was restless from the morning, staring at the clock and waiting for the appointed time. When the time came, I met up with Alex and we headed to his parents' house. Entering the house, Mr. Johnson was sitting in the living room just like last time. "Hello, it's been a while." I greeted him. Mr. Johnson still had that bothered look in his eyes. "What, you came again?" "Yes, giving up is not in my nature," I replied cheerfully. Naturally, his attitude did not change. "No matter how many times you come, my feelings won't change, so stop wasting your time." "No, that's not going to work for me. I have my own stubbornness and pride." Hearing this, his annoyed demeanor shifted to one of resignation. "Do whatever you want." "So, do you have anything to say?" I repeated my request for marriage. "Yes, please allow me to marry Alex." "No. I will not let my Alex marry a poor person." The expected response came. "As I've said many times, we are not poor. And just how rich are you to call people poor?" Now, the counterattack began. I threw the question right back at him. "What?" "I took over my father's company, which had 20 employees, and grew it to include associated companies with 2,000 employees. That's 100 times bigger, isn't it? There's no way I am not rich, the president of such a respected company." "Oh really, and? Are you mocking me? Our sales went from $1 million a year to over $100 million now. Isn't that the company's story?" "That's not your money, is it?" "Yes, the company is big, not you." I hurled back what I had thought since the time I stormed out in anger. Struck where it hurt, he began to shout loudly. "What are you trying to say? Stop belittling people. If you want to convince me, prove that you are richer than me. Is money the only measure of a person? That's wrong. A person's worth is not measured by money." As I fought back, his voice grew even louder. "That's something poor people would say. If you want money that badly, just say it. I'll give you the money, but never come to our house again." That sounds exactly like something a nouveau riche would say. "It suits you." "Hey, Sarah." "Dad, stop it, it's embarrassing." Seeing both his father and me getting heated, Alex stepped in to stop us. "You be quiet. No, this is originally a matter between Sarah and me." "Shut up. I won't be satisfied until I make this poor person understand my greatness." As Mr. Johnson got increasingly agitated, I also showed no signs of backing down. "Exactly, I won't be satisfied until I give this ignorant man a piece of my mind. I won't marry him until this is settled. Seriously, we came to announce our marriage, why has it turned into this?" Alex was at his wit's end. What an impudent girl. "I want to see what her parents are like." "Oh? That's how it is? Then, I'll meet your request. Next time we meet, I'll bring my parents." "Yes, bring them. I want to see the faces of the parents who raised such an impudent daughter. Surely, they must be just as rude as her." With that, Mr. Johnson scoffed. "How could someone like Alex come from a parent like you? It must be Ms. Johnson's excellent genes." "Oh my, I've been complimented." "Thank you, Sarah." Ms. Johnson was delighted. "Hey. Why are you getting happy?" After scolding his wife, Mr. Johnson turned to me and said, "Enough, you're not worth talking to. I'll have a thorough discussion when your parents come. A daughter like you doesn't belong in this house." What outrageous words. However, Alex got angry before I did. How could you say something so terrible? I don't consider you a father anymore. I'm going to disown you and sever our familial ties. Then, should I divorce him? He's always saying such awful things, and I don't want to be with him anymore. Ms. Johnson said it nonchalantly. When I got home, I told my parents what had happened that day. After hearing everything, my father sighed and said, "Is that so? Well, if that's what they want, I'll meet them as they wish." Exactly, you should tell them off. But, I'd like to meet Ms. Johnson. From what I hear, she doesn't seem like a stranger. You coming along might complicate things, so you better not go. Oh no. But I want to go. My mother started looking forward to becoming friends with Ms. Johnson. I put a stop to that. No way. Mom, your pace would dampen my anger. Oh, and here I am thinking about Sarah. My mother pretended to cry, frustrated. By the way, what was Alex's father's name again? I think it was Robert. Yeah. Robert Johnson. Robert Johnson? Robert. Did you say Robert Johnson? My father pondered the name, seeming puzzled. It was a bit curious, and I asked him as I nodded along. Yes, that's right. Dad, do you know him? No, but something is nagging at me. I can't quite place it. My father continued to ponder. Oh dear, have you gone senile? My mother joked. Oh. That's right, it's that guy, that bastard. It seemed he finally remembered. He knows him? The world is vast yet small, I thought, surprised by the coincidence. What, Dad, you know him? Well, sort of. Now, Sarah, could you contact Mr. Johnson for me? Sure, is next Saturday okay? Yes, that's fine. Also, I'll be a bit late, so you go ahead first, okay? Huh? Aren't you coming with me? I had thought he would be coming with me, so I was a bit surprised to hear he wouldn't. The main character makes an entrance at the end. Okay, I got it. I didn't know what my father was thinking, but I decided to leave it to him. Then the day of the showdown arrived. Stick to the plan, I'll be a little late. I'll contact you when I get there, hold on until then. And as autumn deepened, it was time for our third visit. We arrived at Alex's house, exchanged brief greetings, and were shown to the living room. As usual, Mr. Johnson had a sour face. Hello, Ms. Johnson. It's nice to see you again. Welcome, Sarah. Your father is here today too. I wonder what kind of drink he'd like. Somehow, she seemed cheerful. Seeing her made me feel a bit more at ease. Don't bother with drinks. And why are you here again? This is the third time. Our fine liquor is wasted on poor people. Thank you for your concern, Ms. Johnson, but I'm fine for now. By the way, isn't your father supposed to be here? Did he get cold feet? Mr. Johnson continued to speak condescendingly. No, he's just running a bit late, I apologize. Well, it doesn't matter, it won't change anything even when he arrives. Alex, slightly irritated, rebuked him. Alex has it tough, I thought. Enough already. I'm the one getting married. It's not your place to keep complaining, is it? His words didn't reach his father. Mr. Johnson responded dismissively. Nonsense, am I not doing all this for you? Alex responded, that's more than I need. As we were having this barely passable discussion, my father contacted me. My father just contacted me. He's arrived. Then, the doorbell rang. Hello. Ms. Johnson, welcome, it's been a while. Ms. Johnson did a strangely formal greeting. It's been a while? But Dad is supposed to be meeting her for the first time. I was curious. Then I heard, "Oh, you remembered me, I'm pleased. I apologize for the intrusion, but today I am here as Sarah's father, Daniel Brown. Thank you for your consideration for my daughter. Don't mention it. Well, everyone has been waiting for you. Please come this way." "Yes, thank you." Such exchanges took place, and my father was led into the living room. "Hey, Robert, long time no see," my father said as he entered, and suddenly Mr. Johnson stood up straight. "Oh, you are Major Brown." "No, I mean, you were a colonel before you retired, I apologize." "Colonel Brown. It has been a while." Then he saluted. His right hand was raised sharply, fingers and thumb extended with the palm facing down. Alex and I could not grasp the situation. "Now, don't be so stiff. It's just that I was a colonel, and you were a master sergeant, old stories. Besides, this is your house. You've come up in the world. I guess all that training I put you through was worth it." "Sir." "Well, for now, I'm sorry about the Spartan surroundings. But please, have a seat." "Oh, thanks. You have a seat, too. Everyone will be more relaxed if you're sitting." "Sir, then I will have a seat." "Excuse me." Saying that, Mr. Johnson sat down, but instead of the casual way he had been sitting, he now sat with a straight back. "Dad, you know Mr. Johnson?" I asked, as the situation was beyond my imagination. "Yes, back when I was in the military, this Robert here came in as a new recruit." Contrasting my casually speaking father, Mr. Johnson, who had been quite imposing until now, seemed to shrink. "Yes, I was under your care back then." "Well, it's quite a coincidence to meet like this, isn't it? Now you're a president? Quite the career leap for someone who used to be a dropout." "Sir, I apologize for any trouble I caused during my time in the military. After retiring, I took over my father's company and with everyone's help, have brought it to where it is today." He seemed continuously nervous throughout the conversation. Despite this, my father enjoyed reminiscing. To think that the clumsy recruit is now a president. Good for you that you made it. "Sir, could we perhaps stop talking about the past? But as for me, I wanted to hear more about those old stories." "Hey, Master Sergeant, is that important? You were a colonel, right?" "Yes, Master Sergeant is like a section chief if you were to compare it to a company role." "I was, well, a bit higher than that." Mr. Johnson nodded vigorously in response. "Sir, I had no idea that Colonel Brown's daughter would be involved with my Alex." My father chuckled heartily. "Let's drop the ranks. I'm retired now, just a civilian." At those words, Mr. Johnson responded even more deferentially. "Sir. Then let me do so. By the way." My father straightened his back a bit, looking down on Mr. Johnson. "I've heard a lot from my daughter. Since the old days, you've had this odd fixation with superior and inferior statuses. I told you countless times to stop, but you're still at it, aren't you? And now I hear you've been looking down on my daughter, calling her poor." "Exactly right." Alex's father shrunk even more. "Sir. I am very sorry for that. Since retiring, I've been working with a company you might know. Anderson Heavy Industries. It's the same company that made the tanks you used to drive. My cousin is the president and I'm now the director of the technical development department there. Thanks to my connections with the Army." Yet another connection spilled from my father's mouth. This revelation widened Mr. Johnson's eyes. "What, Anderson Heavy Industries?" "Yes, that's right. If I remember correctly, our companies have a business relationship with you. Yes. Anderson Heavy Industries is a very important partner to our company. And we are extremely grateful for their support. I didn't come here to talk about work, but given the current situation, maybe it's something to think about? The pressure from my overlooking father was immense. And Mr. Johnson shrank even smaller. For me, who had been looked down upon as a poor and wanted to see what her parents look like, this was truly exhilarating. No, that would be very troubling. At that response, my father's tone became slightly harsher. Then shouldn't you, as a parent, be blessing the marriage of Alex and Sarah? We're not as poor as you think. Yes, you are correct. I am very sorry for my rude behavior. Saying that, Mr. Johnson continuously apologized in his formal position. Did you hear that, Alex? Sarah? Now, there should be no more issues with your marriage. My father looked up with a mission accomplished expression and turned to us. Yes. Thank you very much. Alex sincerely expressed his gratitude. Dad, thank you. I also expressed my thanks. If it weren't for my father, this conclusion might not have been possible. I truly felt grateful to have my father. Mr. Johnson remained looking down. Ms. Johnson, who was pleased with the term Sergeant Johnson, placing her hands on her hips and striking a defiant pose. Sergeant Johnson. With this, you agree to their marriage, right? Even you, what are you saying? Mr. Johnson became quiet. My father looked at me, gave a thumbs up, and winked. Then, Alex and I had our wedding without a hitch. Many of my father's university classmates attended the reception. It seemed he and his classmates had been prestigious in the military because Sergeant Johnson was made to stand at attention and was teased by everyone. At the wedding entertainment, my father's classmates performed something called military exercise. Of course, Sergeant Johnson was in charge of calling the commands and led the routine. Watching these grown men sweat as they exercised, Alex and I burst into laughter. After that incident, Ms. Johnson started calling his husband Sergeant Johnson and commanding him whenever she had requests. Now, she seems to have the upper hand. Alex and I are living a happy life together. We are blessed with 2 sons. My father adores his grandsons and becomes completely soft when he sees them. One day, when a friend from my father's days visited, they saw him being affectionate with his grandsons and chuckled, saying, "The man who was called the Demon Daniel." Today, my father and my sons are playing heroes in the garden. Special move. Miracle beam. Zop. Geek. I've been hit. Both my father and children are covered in mud. Really, they're just boys, huh? Saying this, I laughed along with my mother. My children, maybe you'll become real heroes in the future? Keep it up, future heroes. My name is Jocelyn. I am 29 years old and have been married for 2 years. My husband's name is Danny. I have been working as an insurance salesperson since graduating from high school. It's been 10 years since I joined the company. But I have a boss named Susan who I really don't get along with. Jocelyn, are you finally getting married? Yes, that's right. Congratulations. But I suppose he's not much of a catch, right? Why would you say that? Sorry. It's just that the guys these girls at our company marry are all so lame. I just thought your husband must be low level too. You really tear him down, don't you? Susan is 1 year older than me. She is single and has no boyfriend. Over the 10 years since I joined the company, several younger female employees got married before Susan did. She always got irritated whenever she heard marriage news. And she always followed the pattern of prying into the spouse's details and making snide remarks. Until now, I was just an observer of those conversations, but finally, it was my turn to be spoken about. However, Susan's reaction this time was a bit different. So? What does your partner do? Oh, you mean his job?
Yeah. Yeah.
Not that it's anything impressive, but I'll listen just for the sake of conversation. What will you do with that information? If you're hiding it, it must be because you're too embarrassed to say. It's not like that. Then there's no need to hide anything, right? I didn't want to talk too much about him to Susan, who loves gossip. But she was so persistent that I ended up telling her which company my husband worked for. Danny works for a company that is well known as a top-tier corporation. Wow. Really? That company is super top tier. But that means the work is tough. I see. But where did you meet such a high-quality guy, Jocelyn? We've been together since our student days. Really? That was lucky. Lucky? Well, I mean, you have such an average face and seem like a typical girl. I was just curious where you met such a good person. That's a rather sharp way of speaking. Oh, not at all. If it sounded like sarcasm, I apologize. It's okay. Introduce him to me sometime. Yes. We had a conversation like this 2 years ago. I had no intention of introducing him, but Susan was so persistent that I let her meet Danny just once. I had no idea it would turn out like this. Long time no see. Looking forward to working with you again. My company occasionally transfers people. Susan had been working at another branch since last year but now returned. As I had been able to work without stress for a year since Susan was gone, I was quite upset when I learned she was coming back. Looking forward to working with you again. How are things going with your elite husband? You mean Danny? Yes. Why do you care? Just a little curious about whether you're still getting along. I see. By the way, I heard you recently bought a condo. Yes, I thought paying rent was a waste, so I finally bought one. But how do you know that? Just a little bird told me. Have you been in contact with Danny? What? You knew? Susan too, huh? What do you mean too? Never mind. How long have you seen Danny? About a year ago. I ran into him in town after I transferred, and we just hit it off. I see. After hearing the story, it seemed that Susan had run into Danny by chance after she transferred. She had been interested in Danny from the moment she first met him, and boldly struck up a conversation. The two of them clicked and are still getting along well. And now, Susan had some shocking news. If you knew I was dating Danny, I don't have to hide it. Oh. So you're not just in touch, you're actually dating him. That's right. Sorry. You don't need to apologize. Is that the composure of a wife? Well, then I'll let you in on another shocking fact. A shocking fact? What happened? Actually, I'm pregnant. It's Danny's baby. It's still very early, though. What? I didn't hear you clearly. Whose baby did you say you're carrying? Danny's. Is that so? I got the DNA of a rich man. Since I'm pregnant, you loser need to leave. Excuse me, I don't understand what you're saying? It seemed Susan was pregnant. The father was Danny. Susan planned to kick me out of the condo and would live there with Danny herself. Susan probably hadn't been informed of us at all. So, you, the loser, will leave the condo. Why do I have to leave the condo? Think about it. I'm pregnant with your husband's child. Naturally, you two will get divorced, and you, the loser who got dumped by Danny, should leave the condo. What? But I'm single, you know. What? Wait, what are you talking about? Are you confused because you're upset? I am perfectly calm. Haven't you heard anything from Danny? I haven't heard anything, but what? We got divorced last year. What? Is that true? What do you mean? Danny didn't tell you anything at all? No, he hasn't told me anything. Is that so? Last year means around the time we started dating? It could be around that time, yes. Danny and I divorced last year. Though we had been together for a long time, our marriage ended after just 1 year. The reason was entirely on Danny's side, and I received more property division than usual. With that money, I boldly bought my own condo. Susan was under the misunderstanding that Danny and I bought the condo together. Why are you living in the condo if you're divorced? Why? Because I bought the condo. I don't understand what you mean. Has Danny mentioned anything about the condo? He said he bought a condo and is living there now. Really? Susan, you've been deceived. He should be living in a condo with his girlfriend now. His girlfriend? I'm Danny's girlfriend. Do you want to hear why we got divorced?
Yeah.
Tell me. The reason for our divorce was Danny's infidelity. Infidelity? With whom? He cheated with a young girl and we got divorced. This is the first I've heard of it. Maybe Danny thought he could keep living as if he was still married, while having an affair with her and also cheat with you. I was considering divorcing Danny after he cheated. But I wanted to trust Danny again, having been together for so long. After many discussions, Danny strongly requested a divorce, offering more property division. So I decided to divorce if he was that determined. It appears that Danny was also cheating with Susan, aside from that young girl. Realizing what a scumbag he truly was, I almost wanted to applaud Danny's dexterity in juggling his affairs. So, even though I'm pregnant, I'm not his main girlfriend? Don't ask me. I wouldn't know. You better discuss that with Danny. But Danny is crazy about me, so I won't lose to some young girl. You're very confident. I'll take Danny away from any other woman. He's a quality man. Well, good luck with that. Then, for a while, Susan was off work due to severe morning sickness. A month later, she returned to work, and she had more shocking news. After all, Danny told me I'm his number one. Is that so? Good for you. He was happy when I told him about the baby, and he chose me over the young girl. Then that's good for you. So, I've decided to quit my job. What? Really? I'm going to be a full-time homemaker. You've always wanted to be a homemaker, haven't you? That's great. It seems like I'm special to Danny after all. Then I wish you happiness. Well, I guess we won't be seeing each other anymore. And you must be feeling lonely having your husband taken away, but take care and stay healthy. Danny seemed to have chosen Susan easily. Despite having paid a large amount of property division to leave me for a younger woman. Susan, utterly elated with happiness, had no idea at that time that Danny was keeping another secret from her. A few months later, Susan, now visibly pregnant, suddenly appeared at the company. Susan, long time no see. Is something wrong? Did you know about it? What? What are you talking about? That Danny has quit his job. What? Danny quit his job? You didn't know either. I've been deceived all this time. When we were married, he often said the job was tough and that he wanted to quit. But when did he quit? Probably after you divorced. I see. Danny quit his job sometime after our divorce. Apparently, he quit impulsively after a dispute with his boss. After quitting, Danny was dumped by the young girl who was the reason for our divorce. It seems that the young girl was Danny's true love. But Susan's pregnancy conveniently led to their marriage. You didn't realize he had quit his job? He was leaving the house in a suit every day, so I had no idea. That's terrible. He was once my beloved husband. But now I think he's the worst from the bottom of my heart. If I had known it would come to this, I would have stayed single. Maybe that would have been better. I got suspicious because he wasn't living as large as before. So when I pressed him, he told me. Is that what happened? By the way, why are you here today? I quit this company without discussing it with him. You resigned without consulting him. I thought there was no need for me to work since he was working at a top company. He did have a good salary at his company. I was planning to be a full-time homemaker and focus on raising children. Then, are you coming back to our company? That's what I came to ask for. Danny also asked me to. I see. I hope you can get rehired. I still remember the proud look on Susan's face when she took Danny from me. But now, her face looked completely different. They already hired someone new and rejected my reapplication immediately. Is that what happened? I shouldn't have quit this job. It had good pay and I liked the work. At the time, you quit suddenly. For now, just focus on having a healthy baby. What are you trying to act nice for? You must be thinking this serves me right. I'm not thinking that. I thought I stole a quality man, but he turned out to be a huge flaw. If you're told it's your own fault, there's not much you can do about it, right? I shouldn't have taken him if I knew it would come to this. If you say that, it's unfair to Danny. He loves children, so he'll surely be a good father. I really don't need a man who can't earn much. Don't say that. Try to get along from now on. You're probably laughing inside. That's not true. Feeling pity for Susan as Danny proved to be a disappointment, I was really glad I divorced him. Susan left the company with a heavy heart. A few months later, Danny suddenly called me. It's been a while. What's up? Well, I just wanted to hear your voice again. What's that about? Isn't it about time for the baby to be born? Actually. What? What is it? Susan found out about my affair and left. What? You cheated with another person? You never learn. Because it's not fun talking with Susan, and I'm not happy with her, so I had to cheat. What's that? Danny, you really only think about yourself. Of course. My own happiness comes first. I see. You always love yourself the most. By the way, are you working properly now? I'm working at a company with a low salary now. I shouldn't have quit my previous job. That was a waste. It seems Danny cheated again. This led to discussions about divorce with Susan. And it looks like she might sue him for property division and child support. And then, he said something unbelievable to me. Jocelyn. Let's get remarried. What? What are you talking about? Because you used to love me so much. That's a story from the past. I've realized after being apart. What have you realized? I need you. What's that? You're too smooth. I don't need you anymore. You earn a good salary, so even with my low salary, we could live normally, right? So what? Also, when we divorced, you took a huge amount of property division from me, right? My current poverty is partly your fault. I promise I won't cheat ever again. Please, let's try again. No way. Danny, you're a father now, so you should think about your child first. You need to have a serious talk with Susan. Danny's cheating habits will probably never change. I clearly refused him over the phone and blocked his number, not wanting any contact in the future. I don't know what happened to them after that. A year has passed since Danny's call. I have a new boyfriend now and am living very happily. When we went to a restaurant. Huh? Susan, is that you? Oh, long time no see. Do you work here? Yes. I have to work to make ends meet. You're working hard. You introduced me to such a man, and now my life is a mess. No, it's more like you took him from me. I didn't think he was that kind of man. Then, my boyfriend, who knew the whole story, said just one thing. It's a waste of time to talk to a thief like her. I don't want our date to be ruined by such a woman. Let's go home. With that, we left the restaurant. The frustrated look on Susan's face at that moment. I will never forget that face. It seems Susan and Danny are still living together for the sake of their child without getting divorced. Because Danny doesn't earn enough, Susan has to work multiple part-time jobs. Her life is far from her dream of being a homemaker. The price she paid for trying to steal happiness from others was great. As for me, I have received a raise at work and am enjoying my job. And now I'm spending a peaceful and happy life with my kind boyfriend. When I had my husband stolen by a close boss, those were truly mentally tough days. But now I want to spend calm and happy days.
I always thought that living in Seville would be peaceful. My name is Catalina, and at 30, I enjoy my life working as an online marketing specialist from home. The house I live in was a gift from my uncle, a gesture I deeply appreciated. It's a charming place, with high ceilings and bright, airy rooms. I had no idea how quickly my sanctuary would turn into a battleground. It all started about a year ago. I was in the middle of a project, carefully crafting an ad campaign, when the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone, so I hesitated before going to answer. To my surprise, there stood my parents, Marta and Juan. They looked rather distressed. "Catalina, we need to talk," Marta said as she stepped inside, her voice tinged with worry. "Sure, what's going on?" I asked, trying to gauge their mood. My parents had been facing financial trouble ever since our old family home started falling apart. Renovations were far beyond their budget, and their income couldn't keep up with the rising costs. One looked around the house, and before long, he said, "This place is enormous. It seems like a waste for you to live here alone. Why don't we move in?" I was stunned. "Wait, what? You can't just decide to move in here without talking to me first. I have my own life and work to consider." Marta chimed in, "Well, your father and I don't have a place to go. We've already sold our house. This one is perfect for us." I felt my heart sink. But this house was given to me by Uncle Luis. He told me I could use it as I please. Juan's face turned red with frustration. Luis gave you this house. You didn't even ask for it. You took advantage of the situation. That's not true, I retorted. I simply had a conversation with Uncle Luis, and he offered it to me. It wasn't some scheme. Despite my protests, my parents had already made up their minds. They planned to move in the very next weekend. Reluctantly, I agreed to let them stay, but only because I couldn't just leave them without a place to go. The day they moved in was chaotic. Boxes were everywhere, and my parents seemed to be in a perpetual state of discontent. They began to criticize my lifestyle immediately. Catalina, you're already 30. Don't you think it's time to consider settling down and getting married? Marta asked one evening as we were unpacking. I'm happy with my work, I replied, trying to keep my cool. I don't need a husband to validate my choices. Look at your sister, Isabel, Juan said. She's married and working for a company. You could learn something from her. I sighed. Isabel's life isn't perfect either. She's just a temp in a dead-end job. I may not have a conventional career, but I'm successful. Marta's eyes narrowed. At least she's trying to build a family. You just sit at home and mess around on your computer. Their words cut deep, but I tried to brush them off. I knew that their generation didn't fully understand the nature of remote work, but their constant belittling was hurtful. Then, things got worse. Isabel, my younger sister, showed up unannounced one day, carrying a suitcase and looking as disheveled as ever. Catalina, hi. I've come to stay, Isabel announced without preamble. Wait, what's going on? I asked, bewildered. I'm going through a divorce and need a place to crash, she explained. So, I'll be staying here from now on. Before I could say anything, Isabel headed upstairs and claimed one of the guest rooms. My frustration was mounting. Not only was I now sharing my home with my parents, but Isabel's unexpected arrival made things even more stressful. The tension in the house grew. Marta and Juan's constant comparison of me to Isabel was unbearable. Despite their financial struggles and Isabel's divorce, they treated me as if I were the failure of the family. To cope with the stress, I decided to adopt a pet. A friend of mine had a Persian cat named Luna that needed a new home. Luna was the sweetest little creature, and I hoped she would bring some comfort to my increasingly chaotic life. When I brought Luna home, my parents and Isabel were initially skeptical. A cat? Really, Catalina? Isabel asked, looking disdainful. She's a great companion, I replied, ignoring the judgment in her voice. Besides, she's my responsibility, not yours. The family's attitude towards Luna softened once they met her. They couldn't resist her soft fur and gentle purring, but the peace was short-lived. One afternoon, while I was busy working, Luna had a little accident on Isabel's clothes. Isabel's rage was explosive. Catalina, how could you let your cat do this? These were my favorite clothes. I tried to explain that Luna was still adjusting to her new home and that accidents happen, but Isabel wasn't having any of it. This is your fault. Pay for the cleaning or else. The confrontation left me shaken. I didn't know what to expect next. The tension in the house was now unbearable. As the days passed, the hostility continued to grow, and it seemed like every action I took was met with criticism. The situation at home was becoming unbearable. It felt like every day brought a new challenge, and I was struggling to keep up. Isabel's anger over Luna's accident only marked the beginning of the tension. One evening, as I was working on a new marketing campaign, Marta barged into my office. Catalina, we need to talk, she said, her voice dripping with irritation. I looked up from my computer, weary. What's it about this time? It's about Isabel's clothes, Marta began. She's been complaining nonstop. She's asked for compensation, and I think it's only fair. I felt a surge of frustration. I've already explained that Luna is still getting used to her new environment. Accidents happen. I'm not responsible for replacing Isabel's clothes. Juan, who had been standing in the doorway, nodded in agreement. Catalina, you should have been more careful. It's not like we can afford to keep replacing things. I tried to remain calm. I don't have the money for that. And honestly, Isabel should be more understanding. I'm already doing my best to accommodate everyone. Their criticism didn't end there. Isabel, who had overheard our conversation, stormed into the room. You think you're so superior with your fancy job and your big house. But this is about respect, Catalina. I'm not asking for much, just a little consideration. My patience was wearing thin. Respect goes both ways, Isabel. I've put up with more than I should have already. Days passed, and the hostility in the house continued to escalate. Every small issue became a major argument. Isabel seemed determined to find fault with everything I did. Even the smallest of mistakes were magnified into huge problems. Then came the turning point that pushed everything over the edge. One night, as I was preparing dinner, I heard Isabel arguing with my parents in the living room. Their voices were raised, and the conversation was quickly turning ugly. Curious and anxious, I walked into the room. What's going on? Isabel's face was flushed with anger. Catalina's cat soiled my clothes again. I've had enough. She needs to get rid of that animal. My heart sank. Isabel, it was one accident. Luna's still adjusting. Can't you be a little more patient? Juan jumped in, his voice firm. Catalina, this isn't just about the clothes. It's about the fact that you've been neglecting us. We're living here too, and you need to take responsibility. The argument grew heated, and before long, Isabel and my parents were demanding that I and Luna leave the house. We're not comfortable living here with your cat, Isabel said, her eyes blazing. Either the cat goes or you do. My shock turned to anger. So now I'm being kicked out of my own home? Because of a minor issue with Luna? Yes, Marta said sharply. It's not just about Luna. It's about how you've treated us. You've been ungrateful and inconsiderate. I was devastated. The house that had once been my sanctuary was now the source of my misery. I knew I had to make a decision. The idea of letting my family dictate my life was unacceptable. I had been pushed too far. That night, I lay awake, my mind racing. I knew I had to take action. I couldn't let my family's entitlement and disrespect drive me out of my home. I needed to reclaim my independence. I decided to contact Uncle Luis. I dialed his number and waited for him to pick up. Catalina, how are you? Uncle Luis's voice was warm but tired. Hi, Uncle Luis, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. I need your help. I want to discuss the house. There was a pause on the other end. What's the matter? I took a deep breath and explained the situation. My parents and my sister have moved in, and things have become really difficult. They've now demanded that Luna and I leave. I don't know what to do. I'm sorry to hear that, Uncle Luis said sympathetically. If you want, I can officially transfer the title of the house to you. You can do what you need to do. The offer was a lifeline. Yes, please. I think it's time I made some changes. The next few days were a whirlwind. I worked with Uncle Luis to get the paperwork in order. The title was officially transferred to me, giving me the authority to make decisions about the property. As I signed the final documents, I felt a strange mix of relief and apprehension. The house was now officially mine, but the true test was yet to come. The confrontation with my family was far from over, and I knew it would be a challenge to stand up to their demands and hold my ground. The tension in the house was palpable. Every corner seemed to echo with unspoken resentment. Isabel's complaints had become a daily ritual, and my parents weren't any better. It felt like my home was being suffocated by their anger and demands. The day after I finalized the house transfer, I decided it was time to let my family know what was happening. I gathered them in the living room, feeling a mix of nervousness and resolve. Luna, my loyal Persian cat, sat beside me, sensing the change in atmosphere. "Everyone, I need to talk to you," I began, trying to keep my voice steady. "I've had enough of the way things have been going. I've contacted Uncle Luis, and the house is now officially mine." Marta's face turned pale. "What are you saying, Catalina?" "I'm saying that I've decided to sell the house," I said firmly. "I can't continue living like this. I've endured enough disrespect and unfair treatment." Isabel's eyes widened in shock. "You can't be serious. This is our home too." "Yes, but it's my home," I countered. "And I'm not going to stay here under these conditions. You've all made it clear that you don't want Luna here, and you've disrespected my space and my life choices. I can't stay in this environment anymore." Juan's face turned red with anger. "You're being unreasonable. This is a drastic step." "It's not drastic, it's necessary," I replied. "I've tried to be understanding, but you've all pushed me too far. I'm not going to be a doormat in my own home." The room fell silent. My parents and Isabel exchanged glances, their expressions a mix of fear and disbelief. They had expected me to back down, but I was resolute. "I'm giving you 2 weeks to find alternative arrangements," I said, feeling a pang of guilt but standing firm. "After that, I'll put the house on the market." Marta's voice trembled. "Where are we supposed to go?" "That's not my responsibility," I said, trying to maintain my composure. "You've made it clear that you don't want me here, and now it's time for me to act on that." As the days passed, the atmosphere in the house grew even more strained. My family's panic set in as they scrambled to find a place to live. The arguments became more frequent, and their attempts to appeal to my sense of guilt grew desperate. Isabel tried to reason with me, but I remained unmoved. One evening, Isabel approached me with a look of defeat. "Catalina, please. I know we've had our differences, but this is really hard for us. Can't you reconsider?" I shook my head. "Isabel, this isn't just about me anymore. It's about standing up for myself. You and Mom and Dad have treated me poorly for too long, and now it's time for me to reclaim my life." As the deadline approached, I made the final preparations to list the house. I contacted a real estate agent and started getting everything ready for the sale. The process was stressful, but it also brought a sense of liberation. I was finally taking control of my own future. The day before the house was set to go on the market, I held a final meeting with my family. The tension was thick as we sat in the living room, the last remnants of our shared life together. "This is the final notice," I said, my voice steady. "Tomorrow, the house will officially be listed for sale. I'm leaving with Luna, and you need to be out by then." Isabel and my parents looked at each other, their faces a mix of anger and resignation. They knew they had pushed me to this point, but it was clear that the reality of their situation was sinking in. "I hope you understand why I had to do this," I said, feeling a wave of sadness. "I wish things could have been different, but this is what needed to happen." As I packed up my things and prepared to leave, a part of me felt a pang of regret. But the overwhelming need to protect my own well-being outweighed the sadness. The house that had once been my refuge was now a symbol of conflict and hurt. The next morning, I left the house with Luna by my side. The street outside seemed brighter, and the weight on my shoulders felt lighter. I was moving on to a new chapter in my life, one where I could finally find peace and rebuild my sense of self. After leaving the house, the world felt different. The weight of family expectations and resentment was finally off my shoulders. I arrived at my new apartment in Seville, a cozy, pet-friendly place with a welcoming atmosphere. Luna seemed to sense the change too, her content purrs filling the quiet space. I spent the first few days unpacking and setting up my new home. The apartment was small but filled with light, and it quickly began to feel like a sanctuary. Luna adjusted to her new surroundings with ease, finding her favorite spots and curling up in the sunniest corners. Despite the initial relief, there was still a part of me that was troubled by the fallout of my decision. I worried about my parents and Isabel, wondering if they had managed to find a new place to live. I had cut off all contact, not out of malice, but because I needed to protect my own mental health. One afternoon, I decided to take a walk around my new neighborhood. As I strolled through the vibrant streets of Seville, I felt a sense of renewal. The sun was shining, and the air was filled with the sounds of a lively city. For the first time in a long while, I felt a genuine sense of freedom. A few days later, I received a letter from my former home, delivered by a mutual friend. It was from Isabel. Her letter was filled with a mixture of anger and sadness. She wrote about the difficulties they had faced in finding a new place and the strain it had put on our family. There was a tone of regret, and she expressed her hope that we could eventually reconcile. Reading the letter, I felt a pang of empathy. Despite everything, I couldn't ignore the fact that family bonds were still there, even if strained. However, I knew that reconciliation would need to come with time and perhaps some understanding from both sides. For now, I needed to focus on rebuilding my own life and finding my own path. As weeks turned into months, I settled into my new routine. My work as an online marketing specialist continued to thrive, and Luna remained a comforting presence in my life. The apartment, once a symbol of change and challenge, became a place of peace and happiness. I found new friends in the city and began to explore Seville's rich culture and history. My life was beginning to flourish in ways I hadn't imagined. I also started volunteering at a local animal shelter, finding joy in helping other pets and their owners. Reflecting on the journey, I realized that my decision to take control of my life was the right one. It wasn't just about revenge. It was about reclaiming my sense of self and finding a way to live authentically. The experience had taught me the importance of standing up for oneself and setting boundaries, even with those we care about. As I watched Luna play in the sun, I felt a deep sense of satisfaction. My life was no longer defined by the conflicts and disrespect of the past. I had emerged stronger and more self-aware, ready to embrace whatever the future held. Catalina's story, marked by conflict and resolution, highlighted the complexities of familial relationships and the importance of self-respect. The journey from strife to empowerment was not easy, but it led to a new beginning, where peace and personal growth were finally within reach.
My name is Tracy Manning. I'm 33 years old. It's been 3 years since I married my husband, John, who is a year older than me. We've struggled to have children, so we decided to start fertility treatments. It was during this challenging time that I discovered my husband's betrayal. What is the meaning of this? Were you both deceiving me? The notification on my husband's smartphone was how I learned of his betrayal. Yes, my husband was having an affair with my real sister, Katie. And that wasn't all. Actually, Katie is pregnant with my child now. So, I want a divorce. What? Katie was pregnant with my husband's child. Those were the last words I wanted to hear. You're kidding, right? Why would you do this? Sorry. I knew you were undergoing fertility treatments, but it just happened. It's still early in the pregnancy, so we don't know the gender yet. But here, this is my ultrasound. This image shows our child. Isn't it cute? The ultrasound photo Katie handed me showed a very small life. Looking at that photo, I trembled with anger. Don't joke about this. You never helped with the fertility treatments. To do something like this behind my back. It's too cruel. The joke's on you. What about me is joking? Normal women get pregnant without fertility treatments, like Katie did. And yet, you haven't gotten pregnant even once in 3 years of marriage. Fertility treatments aren't free, you know. All the tests and treatments. Do you have any idea how much of my money has gone into this? I never wanted to support that. What's so wrong about leaving a woman who can't get pregnant and going to another? Excuse me? Tracy, you've been overindulging because he works for a major company on the fast track to success, haven't you? What? I think marriage is about helping each other. But if you ask for too much, it becomes a burden, right? John told me, there's no rest even when I come home. Weren't you pushing him too hard with the fertility treatments? Honestly, I think his affair is your fault. As he said, you can't complain if he goes to another woman. You say I was pushing him. John has never. Katie is right. Being with you was painful for me. I want to be happy with my new family. I'll pay whatever it takes for compensation. Just sign these divorce papers and get out. Looking down on me with disdain, the two of them were too much to bear. However, holding on to this marriage wouldn't bring me happiness. Understood, I accept the divorce. With that, I signed the divorce papers, took the compensation, and left the house. That was about a year ago. After learning the truth, both of our parents were furious, of course. However, they eventually resigned themselves to accepting the two's marriage since Katie was already pregnant. Since then, I've cut ties with them and blocked all their contacts. I don't know where or what they are doing now. Then, one day, something happened. Hello? It's your sister. Are you doing well? A call came from an unknown number, and it was surprisingly my sister. Why would you go out of your way to contact me from an unknown number? I blocked you because I didn't want to communicate with you. What? Are you still angry? Don't sulk forever, just come and celebrate with your sister. Celebrate? Actually, the child that was in my stomach back then was just born. That's why I want you to come and see. Why should I? This child is genuinely your niece, isn't she? Sure, we've had our differences. But forget about the past and come see your cute niece. Despite everything, my sister brazenly invited me to meet my niece. She probably wants to show off that she is everything I ever wanted. Normally, I wouldn't accept such an invitation from her. However, after some thought, I decided to accept her invitation. All right. I've had something I wanted to tell you too, so this is perfect. When should I visit? Oh, then, how about next Saturday? Next Saturday, then. I'll bring a gift when I come. Okay. My sister seemed a bit surprised that I accepted her invitation. But she didn't ask why. However, she would soon deeply regret inviting me home just to show off. And just like that, the promised day arrived. Welcome. My sister greeted me with a beaming smile as she came out of the house I once lived in, holding her newborn niece, who was sleeping peacefully in her arms. The milk just finished. Come on in. The first thing I saw when I entered was my ex-husband, whom I hadn't seen in about a year. His disdainful look hadn't changed. It's been a while, Tracy. Have you been well? We've been really busy every day since the child was born. But we're truly happy. I know it must be tough being alone. But I really appreciate that you accepted the divorce. Thanks. That's a bit much. It would be sad for Tracy, who is single now, wouldn't it? She even came today, enduring the hardship. The two of them mocked me as they spoke. By the way, what's the gift you mentioned on the phone? Is it inside that paper bag you're holding? Since having a child, I've realized how expensive it is to raise one. My husband works for a major company, so we still have some leeway. I think you should be prepared too. Well, unless you get the chance, considering your divorce was due to infertility. That's when it happened. The doorbell echoed throughout the room. There weren't supposed to be any other visitors. My sister, puzzled, opened the front door. And standing there was. Excuse me, I think my wife might be here already. Huh? This is my husband. What? Yes, the person who arrived was my husband. Both my ex-husband and my sister were shocked by this fact. I came by car, but couldn't find a parking spot, so I dropped off alone first. Did you find a parking spot? Yes, someone nearby showed me where to park. That's good. Wait a minute. You got married? Yes. When? About 3 months ago. Why didn't you tell me? Why would I? After what happened, we cut ties. I didn't think I'd need to tell you. And I never thought I'd be invited here. But why would such a tall, handsome man be with someone like you? Where did you meet? Well, that's a story for later. Can we come in for now? We haven't seen each other in a while, so there must be a lot to catch up on. Right. And so, we were led into the living room again. Wow, nice living room. It's fresh compared to ours. Is that so? Yes, our living room is combined with the dining area. Hearing this, my ex-husband smirked unpleasantly and said, living and dining together means it's not a very big house. Stunned that I was married, my ex-husband seized the opportunity to assert dominance. And he continued to try to one-up us by saying, as you might have heard from her, we used to be married. This house was bought during that time. Well, there were some stretches. But I think I'm the only one in our age group who owns a house this big. Is that so? It's indeed a big house. You seem quite young and very successful. Yes. Well, do you know Company A? Everyone knows this major corporation. I work there. But I just handed in my resignation. Actually, I've secured a job at Company B, which is even bigger than A. Originally, Company B is a stable, large corporation. But it's been growing a lot recently, so I decided to join the wave. I actually start working there next month, but anticipating a salary increase. I bought a new apartment in the city. I'm planning to move the week after next. So, if you like, shall we sell this house? I hate to say it, but it seems like you're not living very well. She's my ex-wife, and I think there's some kind of fate in this, so don't hesitate. Right? It's okay, isn't it, Katie? That sounds fine. But, isn't it a bother to sell such a house to someone who isn't living well? Well, that's true. By the way, what do you do for work? Ah, it's nothing significant. Did it become hard to say after I mentioned my job change to Company B? Don't hold back. I'm not expecting much. My ex-husband said this and laughed crudely. Is that so? Then I'll speak without hesitation. Excuse me? I came here today because there's something I need to tell you. What is that about? Don't you remember me? We've met once before. My ex-husband pondered. Since you don't seem to remember, let me introduce myself. I am Robert, the executive director at Company B. What? Yes, my husband is the executive director of Company B. the company to which he planned to transfer. Looking at the business card my husband presented, my ex-husband and sister turned pale and were at a loss for words. Why would the executive director? Normally, I would notify you by phone or in writing, but I heard about it from my wife. I decided to come here with her. Notification about what? Then, my husband told him. Mr. Manning, I regret to inform you that we have decided to rescind your job offer. A job offer cancellation. Why? Do you have any idea why this might be happening? I have no clue. I've lived my life earnestly and have always been diligent at work. I believe I was highly regarded at Company A, respected by both my superiors and subordinates. I can't imagine why you would suddenly cancel my job offer. Ignoring my ex-husband's confusion, my husband gave me a knowing look. I took the cue and pulled out a document from the paper bag I had brought and handed it to my husband. What is that document? This document contains the reasons for the cancellation of your job offer. Before you read it, are you sure you have no idea why your offer might be rescinded? I think not. All right. Please read through this document. Handing over the document, my husband watched as my ex-husband hesitantly began to read. Gradually, his face turned ashen. Why, how could this be? We received reports from our employees about an account leaking information about companies A and B on social media. This account also posted confidential information only someone from Company A would know, as well as vulgar remarks about female employees and other indecent content. The account listed in this document, it's yours, isn't it? His job offer from Company B was cancelled because of the content he had posted on social media weeks ago. What? Information about our company is being posted on social media? After receiving this report from a Company B employee, my husband immediately checked the social media, and there unbelievable posts were made. Finally got the job offer from Company B. Time to say goodbye to Company A. Some still doubt I work at Company A, so I'll show them the project plan. I designed all these products. You guys must have bought them too. Here's the department head's pay slip. Found it in the hallway, so I'm sharing it. Here's a photo of the women's changing room. Since I'm quitting, it's probably past the statute of limitations, right? Honestly, the interview at Company B was a breeze. Looks like I'll be able to climb the ladder easily. If anyone's curious, once I join Company B, I'll post their info too. It seems there were numerous other posts including degrading actions towards female employees of Company A and derogatory comments about women. Too appalling to mention here. Shocked by the extent of the misconduct, my husband reported it immediately to the CEO. The CEO then ordered an investigation to find out who made these posts. It turned out that the person who had posted them was him, who had just secured a position at Company B. Subsequently, the senior management was summoned for a meeting. The topic was, naturally, about Mr. Manning's job offer. We hadn't yet posted much about Company B since he hadn't actually started working with us, but there was significant posting about Company A. Employee salary details and images from a women's changing room he had sneaked into. Even actual project plans he was working on. Moreover, these were not posted on a private social media account, but on one accessible to the public. The spread of these posts was substantial enough to be considered malicious. And for these valid reasons, the decision was made to rescind the job offer. Hearing this, my ex-husband and sister were pale and speechless, mouths agape. As I mentioned earlier, this is usually communicated by phone or in writing, but my wife suggested a proposal. Yes, Mrs. Manning suggested we come to your house since she was invited. So we came together. Indeed, the reason I accepted my estranged sister's invitation was that I had heard about the cancellation of my ex-husband's job offer from him. So, you found out who was leaking information to Company B. It appears to be someone who had received a mid-career job offer from us. This person had also been leaking confidential information from their previous employer, Company A, and honestly, it seemed pretty serious. So, the person in this document is the culprit? Let me see. Yes. The document contained a familiar name. Wait a minute. John Manning, is it? Could this be this person? I showed a photo of my ex-husband that was still on my phone to him. Why do you have his photo? Well, I don't know how to put this, but he's my ex-husband. We divorced a year ago after I caught him cheating with my real sister. What? Thus, it was confirmed that the perpetrator who had been leaking information to Company B was my ex-husband. A few days later, by some coincidence, my sister invited me to their house. Truly, I was shocked. I got the call just a few days after hearing such a story from my husband. I had no intention of going initially, but I accepted the invitation thinking it might create a chance for them to talk. But it turned out to be a great decision. Desperate to assert dominance by inviting me to her home, my sister ended up embarrassingly exposing her own disgrace in front of me. And couldn't say a word, just looking down in silence. So, do you understand the reason for the cancellation of the job offer? I understand. But it's different. Excuse me? It wasn't meant to be taken that way. It was just a joke. I was egged on by my followers, and I posted it in the heat of the moment. There was no deep meaning behind it. Mr. Manning, that is precisely why your job offer was rescinded. It was just for fun, just a joke. There was no deep meaning behind posting it. The casualness with which you broadcast confidential information about the company to the world is unacceptable. We cannot employ someone who might casually leak our confidential information in the future. If this were an already employed staff member, they would be fired. Do you understand? That is, the posts were discovered a few days ago. We took immediate action. This account should already be frozen. Didn't you think something was odd at that point? I thought someone who was offended by the posts might have reported them. I had no idea that Company B was aware of the posts. I hadn't imagined. Is that so? But we were not the only ones who took action. Huh? Afterwards, we naturally informed Company A as well. They suffered more damage than us, after all. Such a thing. About Company A. They were furious. I'm not sure about the details, but I think they'll file a police report and claim for damages. You should expect to receive some kind of communication. So please handle that on your end. Hearing the words police report and damages, my ex-husband turned even paler, then said, I know this is a brazen request, but could you possibly reconsider the cancellation of the job offer? It would really put me in a difficult position if my job offer from Company B is rescinded. Difficult? Yes. As I mentioned earlier, I got carried away when I received the job offer from Company B and prematurely bought a new apartment in the city. So if the job offer is rescinded, I won't be able to pay for the moving expenses or the mortgage, and I'll be out on the street. I'll accept anything but the job offer being rescinded. So, please, I'm begging you, too. As you can see, we have a newborn daughter. We could manage somehow on our own. But if things continue this way, our daughter will suffer too. So please, forgive him for what he did, please. The two of them said this and begged forgiveness. However, reality isn't so lenient. My husband gave them a sharp look and said, "Truly a brazen request. You can't pay for the new house's mortgage if the job offer is cancelled? You and your child will end up on the street? Is that our concern as employees of Company B? So, that is. You know it's brazen, so please don't make such requests. Even if you beg me, there's nothing I can do. This decision was made by the entirety of Company B. You've brought this upon yourself, so please just accept it. That's all I can say." A sound argument that left no room for rebuttal. I thought this would make him recognize his fault and give up. However, his actions far exceeded my expectations. So that's it. I see your plan. Tracy, this was your goal? You got involved with the executive director of Company B to get back at us for betraying you. What are you talking about? You were jealous of my fast-tracked career and plotted to ruin me by finding my weakness. That's right. Incredibly, he started accusing me of getting involved with him and trying to sabotage his life because I was spiteful about being betrayed. That's ridiculous? What misunderstanding is this? No, there can't be any misunderstanding. It must be true. Seeing him like this, my sister also said. Now that you mention it, it does seem odd. After all, Tracy divorced about a year ago, right? And now she's already remarried? That's suspicious. She started attacking me. You accused us of having an affair, but were you having one yourself? That's not the case. Yeah, right. They say women are better liars than men. Women really do filthy things. All my social media followers say it, too. Women are not to be trusted. Look at her, acting all innocent. This hypocrite. Driven to desperation by being told he couldn't be hired by my husband, he resorted to insulting me. However, my husband didn't remain silent. Hypocrite? Isn't that what you are? What? I'm sorry to burst your bubble, but please don't equate your relationship with ours. What are you saying? We met after she divorced you. I was invited to a drinking party by a friend, where I met Tracy. I later found out that the party was organized by the friend to cheer Tracy up after her terrible breakup with you. There, we clicked. And soon after, we started dating. And so, we quickly decided to get married. That's why our relationship isn't shameful like yours. What? He's right. If you calm down and think about it, you'll see the contradictions in what you're saying. Me, approach him to get revenge on you? I only found out you had a job offer from Company B recently. So, how does it turn out that I approached him to get revenge on you? If I had approached someone related to Company A, maybe, but your accusations are baseless. So, that is. Can you stop projecting your guilty conscience onto everything? Our sharp rebuttal silenced my ex-husband. Seeing his reaction, we decided there was nothing more to discuss and began to leave. However, don't joke. Doing this as revenge against us? I will never forgive this. Enjoy it while you can. Be prepared. As we were leaving, my sister hurled these harsh words at our backs. Hearing her outburst, I turned around, smiled at her, and said, Isn't it you who should be feeling good? It seems like a certain secret hasn't been uncovered yet. Lucky he's so oblivious. What are you suddenly talking about? What do you mean? Don't you know very well what I'm talking about? What's wrong? Why the pale face? And what secret are you talking about? Hey, remember? Back when we were still married. When we first started fertility treatments. You also had tests done at the hospital, right? What does that have to do with anything now? Why bring up fertility treatments here? It is indeed a bit late, but it's an important issue. For you. What? Aren't you curious about those test results? You acted as if the results had nothing to do with you, didn't bother to listen. Since then, you've assumed infertility was a woman's fault. You never doubted that it was you who was infertile. What are you talking about? The doctor clearly said. The cause of the infertility was not me, but you. That having children would be nearly a miracle. What? I'm the cause of the infertility. That's impossible, that's ridiculous. Because infertility is supposed to be a woman's issue. Indeed, many people mistakenly think all infertility issues are caused by women. But just as often, men can be the cause. Not all infertility issues are due to women. But I have a daughter. If what you're saying is true, my daughter is. That's just nonsense, right? You're just jealous and making this up because you couldn't get pregnant. Who said I couldn't get pregnant? Actually, I'm pregnant right now. What? It's still early, so we don't know the gender yet, but here, this is my ultrasound. This image is of our child. Isn't it cute? The familiar scenario left them both pale and speechless. Well, they never said it was impossible to conceive, maybe a miracle happened. So, why all the insinuations? Why? Maybe you should ask your sweating wife next to you about who the father of the child is. That's. Tracy, are you implying my daughter isn't mine? If it turned out to be true, hiding it forever would be difficult, wouldn't it? Maybe you can't tell now, since she's just been born. But don't you think you'll start to feel something is off as she grows? Especially since they say daughters often resemble their fathers. My words left the two of them frozen. Well, we'll be leaving now. Thank you for having us today. It was nice to see you after such a long time. Take care. With that, we left. It goes without saying that the moment we stepped out of the house, the sound of their yelling could be heard from inside. Several weeks later, I received a call from an unknown number. Hello. Tracy. It's me. As expected, it was my ex-husband. What do you want? I'm busy, you know. After that, I couldn't stop thinking about what you said. And got a DNA test done for my daughter. And it turns out she isn't my child. We're not related by blood. Is that so? And when I confronted her about it, she confessed. She was trying to trap me, someone working at a big corporation, by getting pregnant. But she couldn't conceive, and ended up pregnant with another man's child she was seeing at the time. I was aware of my sister's scheme and that it would eventually come to this. The job offer was rescinded, I had to sell the new house. Plus, the daughter isn't related by blood, and I've divorced her. My parents have cut ties with me because of everything that happened with you. I've lost everything in this past year, all I have left is debt. This must be the punishment for betraying you, Tracy. What should I do now? My ex-husband was probably expecting me to console him. But I chose not to meet his expectations. That's right. What? Exactly. This outcome is all your own doing. A punishment for acting only in your own self-interest. To think you'd expect consolation from me, that's pretty brazen. Accept your fate and live with it. Goodbye. Wait a minute, hey. According to what I later heard from our parents, my sister returned to our family home with her child, but my father, deeming her behavior too audacious, turned her away. With nowhere left to go, she tried to turn to the child's father. But that didn't work out either. She's probably leading a life far removed from the one she had imagined, struggling alone.
Kenzie, I've got this new app idea that's going to revolutionize everything, Jack declared, eyes glued to his phone. I laughed, placing a hand on his shoulder. Of course you do, Mr. Genius. Just don't forget to revolutionize our anniversary plans, too. Jack barely looked up. Yeah. Sorry, just one sec, gotta reply to this email. As I watched him tap away, a twinge of unease crept in. Jack and I always celebrated our milestones grandly, and he was never this distracted before. I brushed off the thought, pushing the unease aside. Our lives were perfect. We had shared dreams, flourishing careers, and a bond that seemed unbreakable. Weeks passed, and Jack's absorption in his phone grew. He had become a fixture in his office late into the night. One evening, after returning from work, I found him still on his phone. "Dinner's ready," I called, setting the table. Jack mumbled something incoherent, still focused on his screen. I sighed, louder than intended. He finally looked up, offering a weak smile. "Just finishing up some work stuff." "More emails?" I couldn't hide the sarcasm in my voice. Jack sighed. "Kenzie, it's complicated. Just trust me." "Trust you?" "That's the thing, Jack. It's hard to trust someone who's always hiding behind a screen." He stood up, approaching the table. "I'm not hiding anything. Work's just demanding right now. We'll celebrate once things calm down." I nodded, but doubt gnawed at me. Something felt off, an undercurrent of tension I couldn't ignore. Another late night. I woke to an empty bed, Jack nowhere in sight. I tiptoed down the stairs, peeking into his home office. There he was, whispering into his phone. "Jack, it's almost midnight," I interrupted. He jumped, sliding his phone into his pocket. "Go back to sleep, Kenzie." Now my curiosity was piqued. "Who were you talking to?" "Just a client from another time zone. You know how it is." His tone was defensive, making my suspicion grow stronger. I crossed my arms. "Do I?" He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "You're overthinking this, Kenzie. Go to bed." Reluctantly I did, but the seeds of doubt were firmly planted. The next morning at breakfast, Jack barely touched his food. "Busy day?" I asked, trying to keep the conversation light. "Yeah. Got a big project in the works. Sorry if I seem distant." The apology was half-hearted. "Maybe we should plan a weekend getaway," I suggested. "Could do us some good." He nodded absent-mindedly. "Sure, sounds nice." But his lack of enthusiasm was evident. Our seemingly perfect life was beginning to show cracks, and a gnawing feeling in my gut told me things were about to get worse. I decided to talk to Mia, my best friend, at lunch later that day. If anyone could offer perspective, it was her. Yet a part of me already knew I wasn't overthinking. The perfect illusion was crumbling, and buried beneath it lay truths that would soon unravel our lives. I met Mia at our usual lunch spot, a cozy cafe downtown. We ordered our usual chicken salad for me and a turkey club for her. As comfortable as our routine was, an uncomfortable feeling loomed over me. "Everything okay, Kenz?" Mia asked, taking a sip of her iced tea. "Jack's been acting strange. He's always on his phone, working late. It doesn't feel right." Mia gave me a sympathetic look. "Maybe it's just work stress. You know how demanding tech can be." "Maybe," I replied, though I wasn't convinced. Just then, my eyes caught a familiar figure outside the cafe window. Jack. He was standing close to a young woman, laughing, his arm around her waist. My heart sank. "Mia," I said sharply, interrupting her mid-sentence. "Look." She turned to follow my gaze and gasped. "Is that—" "Jack," I confirmed softly, "and he's not alone." We both watched as Jack leaned in to kiss the woman. I felt a wave of nausea. This wasn't just a work thing. It was something far more painful. Mia shook her head in disbelief. "Kenzie, I'm so sorry." I stood abruptly, determined to confront him. Mia grabbed my arm. "No, not here. Wait till you have him alone." Chomping down my initial impulse, I nodded. "You're right. But that, I pointed out the window, isn't just anyone. That's Paige. Her eyes widened. My daughter Paige? No way. She's only 24. What the hell is going on? I wish I knew, I said through gritted teeth. I'll find out tonight. Dinner was a silent affair, tension hanging like a storm cloud. Jack poked at his food, clearly distracted. Who was she? I finally blurted out. Jack looked up, feigning confusion. Who? Don't who me. Paige, I saw you with her today. His face hardened. Kenzie, it's not what you think. Then what is it? I demanded, my voice shaking with anger. Jack pushed his chair back and stood up. Fine. You want the truth? Paige and I are seeing each other. It felt like the floor dropped from beneath me. You're seeing my best friend's daughter? How could you? I'm tired of this life, Jack snapped. I need something new, something exciting. Paige gives me that. I could barely breathe. So you destroy our life for what? A fling? It's more than a fling, he said coldly. I'm done pretending. I stood there, staring at a man I no longer recognized. The silence grew heavy until Jack muttered, I'm staying with Paige tonight. He walked out, leaving me in the ruins of our perfect life. The door slammed and I broke down, feeling the sting of betrayal cut deep. The man I thought I knew was gone, replaced by a stranger tangled up with a girl half his age. This wasn't just an end, it was a beginning. The beginning of understanding just how deep this betrayal cut and where it would lead me next. I dialed my mother, Evelyn, the next morning, desperate for some sense of clarity. As soon as she picked up, I could barely keep the tears from spilling. Mom, I need to talk to you. Can you come over? Her voice was firm yet concerned. I'll be there in 20 minutes. When she arrived, I could see the worry etched on her face. Kenzie, what's going on? Jack's having an affair, I replied, trying to steady my voice. With Paige. Evelyn's eyes widened in shock. Paige? Mia's daughter? Yes, and he admitted he's leaving me for her. As if on cue, Mia called me. Kenzie, I heard everything. I'm coming over. We need to talk about this face to face. We all gathered in my living room. The tension was palpable. Mia was the first to break the silence. I never thought Paige could do something like this. She's my daughter. How could she betray you, betray us like this? It gets worse, I said. Jack's leaving me for her. He's tired of our life. Evelyn shook her head. Her usual calm rattled. We need to confront them. This can't go on. Before I could respond, the door opened, and in walked Jack and Paige, hand in hand. The audacity of it took my breath away. Well, looks like the party started without us, Paige sneered. How dare you? Mia shouted, stepping forward. You betrayed your own family. Paige shrugged, unfazed. It's not my fault you all are so boring. Jack wants excitement, and I can give him that. Jack stood there, silent but resolute. His presence was like a wall, indifferent and cold. Evelyn, Mia pleaded, say something, please. My mother took a deep breath. Paige, you've always been conniving, but this... I never thought you would stoop so low to destroy your own family. Paige rolled her eyes. Spare me the lecture, Grandma. This isn't about family. It's about what I want, and I'm getting it. You're tearing everything apart, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Jack finally spoke. We're not tearing anything apart that wasn't already broken. I'm done living a lie. So this is it? I asked, desperation clinging to my words. You're choosing this over us? That's right. Paige answered for him, pulling Jack closer. Get used to it. Evelyn stepped forward then. Paige, you're living off a trust fund that's about to run out. What happens when you're broke? Shock rippled across Paige's face, though she quickly masked it. We'll manage, right, Jack? Jack hesitated, the first sign of doubt crossing his face. Think long and hard, Jack, Evelyn continued. Is this really what you want? Jack's silence was deafening, the realization hitting him for the first time. As they turned to leave, the sense of finality settled in. But amidst the heartbreak, there was a small flicker of hope. It was the beginning of a plan, a way to regain control and ensure they would come to regret every single decision they had made. Evelyn and Mia stayed late into the evening, offering support and helping me regain some composure. The reality of my situation made it almost impossible to think clearly. Kenzie, you need to focus on yourself now, Evelyn said firmly, and figure out your next move. I will, but I can't just let them get away with this, I replied, the anger in my voice unmistakable. Mia nodded. We've got to hit them where it hurts. Paige's trust fund is almost gone, and Jack doesn't know that yet. The thought was sobering. I smiled slightly, a plan beginning to form. That's a start, and they'll be penniless soon. Over the next few days, I focused on my job, pouring all my energy into my work. Success would be my revenge. The drive to succeed, combined with the desire for payback, propelled me forward. Each day, the path became clearer. One evening, I needed to relive some of the tension, so I met up with Zoe, my closest friend since college, who worked as a private investigator. If anyone could help dig in deeper, it was her. "Zoe, I need your help," I said as we sat down in her office. She took a sip from her coffee and leaned forward. "Give me the details." "Jack's been cheating on me with Paige, Mia's daughter," I explained quickly. Zoe's brow furrowed. "That's messy. What do you want me to do?" "I need anything and everything you can find. Financials, secrets, there has to be something," I said resolutely. "You got it," Zoe replied, grabbing a notepad. "I'll get started right away." As Zoe began her investigation, I kept moving ahead. I filed for divorce and focused on climbing the ranks at work. Every success was a small victory, a step towards reclaiming my life. A few days later, Zoe called me. "Kenzie, I've got something. Meet me at the cafe." When I arrived, Zoe had a folder ready. "Jack's financials are tied up in risky investments, and Paige isn't as squeaky clean as she appears. She's run up a lot of debt, and without that trust fund, she's toast." I felt a grim satisfaction. "So they'll hit rock bottom soon." "Seems like it," Zoe confirmed. "They'll tear each other apart once the money runs dry." At home, I organized the documents and reports Zoe had given me. I would use every bit of this information to ensure they faced the consequences of their actions. Meanwhile, Jack and Paige's relationship started to deteriorate. The financial strain was taking its toll. I heard rumors of their arguments, and it was like a small beacon of justice. Each day, I grew closer to my goal. I could sense their downfall approaching. I would be there, ready to watch it unfold, a fitting end for their betrayal. I knew the time for a dramatic confrontation was nearing, and I was more prepared than ever to face it. The morning after filing for divorce, I felt a strange sense of liberation. It was like I'd cut away the final tether holding me to a life that no longer existed. Jack's reaction had been predictably indifferent when he received the papers. "Are you serious, Kenzie?" he'd said, briefly looking up from his phone. "Is this really necessary?" "You made it necessary. This is the consequence of your choices," I responded, my voice steady. He shook his head, scoffing as he walked away. His reluctance to acknowledge the gravity of the situation only fueled my resolve. Back in my office, I called Zoe. "Can you meet for lunch? I have an idea." At the cafe, we discussed ways to use the information she'd gathered. "Jack's partners need to know about his shady financials," Zoe suggested. "And Paige's debt. Let's start a little fire and watch it burn," I added. Zoe smirked. "I like the way you think." Over the next few weeks, block by block, I built my case. I discreetly provided Jack's partners with evidence of his risky investments. They started distancing themselves, and whispers of mismanagement circulated. Jack was too absorbed in his downward spiral with Paige to notice the backlash coming from his associates. Meanwhile, I threw myself into work. Late nights and hard-fought achievements raised my profile within the company. It wasn't just revenge, it was also about rebuilding my life, on my terms. One evening, on a whim, I called Jack. "We need to talk." He sounded suspicious. "About what?" "Meet me at our usual spot, the coffee shop," I said and hung up before he could protest. When he arrived, he looked worn out, shadows under his eyes. "So what's this about?" "How are things with Paige?" I kept my tone neutral. Jack sighed. "It's complicated. Her trust fund, it's running out soon, isn't it?" His eyes widened. "You know about that?" "Of course I do, and the debt she's accumulated." I leaned in. "Jack, you left our stable life for this mess. Does she even know?" "Since when do you care?" he retorted, frowning. "I don't. I just want you to face the reality you've created," I said, standing up. "Good luck with that." Leaving him there, stunned, felt like a small victory. This was far from over. A few days later, Zoe called me, excitement in her voice. "Kenzie, I've got something big. Meet me at my office." When I arrived, she handed me another folder. More dirt on Paige. She's been stealing from Jack's business account to pay her debts. I couldn't help but smile. This is exactly what I needed. "Ready to pull the trigger?" Zoe asked, eyes gleaming. "Absolutely," I replied. "Let's finish this." I returned home, preparing for the final stage. Jack and Paige were on the brink of ruin, and I was ready to give them the final push. Revenge was no longer just a desire. It was a certainty. And soon, they would face the full consequences of their betrayals. It wasn't long before Jack's world began to crumble. At first, I heard whispers at work about a big fallout between him and several investors. They were pulling out, leaving his latest project hanging by a thread. All the while I watched from a safe distance, quietly relishing each piece of news that slid my way. One night I was working late when my phone buzzed. It was Zoe. "You need to hear this, Kenzie. Jack just found out about Paige's secret debts. He is livid." "Where are they?" I asked, curiosity piqued. "They're holed up at their apartment. From what I've heard, things are getting heated." Part of me wanted to ignore it, but another part, a stronger part, needed to see the fallout firsthand. I grabbed my coat and drove to their place, staying out of sight but close enough to hear the raised voices echoing through the night. "Paige, what the hell? You spent how much?" Jack's voice was loud and filled with accusation. Paige fired back, equally loud. "Don't act like you're blameless. Your whole company is falling apart because of your bad decisions." Their words cut through the darkness, filled with venom. After a moment, there was a loud crash. Furniture, or maybe a thrown object. Jack burst out of the door, looking wild-eyed and frantic. I ducked behind a car, holding my breath. "Jack, come back here! We're not done!" Paige screamed from the doorway. "Done? We're done when I say we're done!" Jack shouted back, his voice echoing down the empty street. He got into his car and drove off, tires screeching. I followed at a safe distance, curiosity driving me forward. He arrived at my house, of all places. I stayed back, watching with a mix of satisfaction and curiosity as he banged on my door loudly. I waited a moment before stepping into the light. "Kenzie, please, I need to talk to you," he begged as I approached. "What is it, Jack?" I asked, my voice calm. "I can't go back there. It's a disaster. Everything's falling apart," he admitted, looking desperate. "I warned you about this," I said, keeping my voice steady. "I know you did," he said, tears forming in his eyes. "I made a mistake. Please help me." I stared at him for a long moment, feeling a mixture of pity and triumph. "I can't help you. You chose this path." "Kenzie, please." He grabbed my arm, but I stepped back, pulling out my phone. "I think it's time I call the police. You're not thinking rationally." Jack's eyes widened, panic setting in. No, I'm leaving." Just as he turned to go, Paige appeared, wild-eyed and holding something metallic in her hand. "You're not going anywhere, Jack." I quickly dialed 911, explaining the situation as Paige assaulted Jack with a barrage of accusations. Moments later, the police arrived, diffusing the situation and taking Paige away. As the chaos finally settled, I watched Jack being led away in handcuffs. The public exposure, the scandal, it was all over the news by morning. My mother, Evelyn, and I shared a quiet moment, sipping coffee and taking in the headlines. Justice had been served, and I felt a profound sense of closure washing over me. The morning after the chaotic scene at my house, I woke up to my phone buzzing with notifications. News of Jack and Paige's tumultuous fallout had spread like wildfire. Headlines splashed their scandal across every platform. My inbox was flooded with messages from colleagues, friends, even acquaintances who hadn't contacted me in years. Each message was a reminder that the truth had finally surfaced. As I sipped my coffee, my phone rang again. It was Zoe. "Did you see the news?" "I have. Couldn't happen to a nicer couple, right?" I replied, unable to hide my satisfaction. "Reports say Paige has been arrested, and Jack's been detained for questioning. The whole thing looks bad for them." "Good," I said simply. "They deserve every bit of it." A knock on the door interrupted our call. "Hey, I have to go. Someone's at the door." Opening the door, I found myself face to face with two police officers. "Mackenzie Reed?" the taller officer asked. "Yes, that's me," I replied, heart pounding. "We're here in relation to the incident last night. We need to ask you a few questions." I stepped aside to let them in, memories of the chaos replaying in my mind. They asked about Jack's arrival, Paige's outburst, and my call to the police. I answered truthfully, every word bringing a strange sense of finality. After 30 minutes, they nodded and thanked me for my time. "The investigation will proceed," one officer said. "Jack and Paige will both face various charges. If you need any assistance, don't hesitate to reach out." "Thank you, officers," I said as they left, closing the door and exhaling deeply. Evelyn joined me in the kitchen, having overheard the conversation. "Looks like they're finally facing the consequences," she remarked, her voice steady. "It's about time," I replied, feeling a weight lift off my shoulders. The days that followed were surreal. Jack's professional life crumbled as investors and partners distanced themselves from the scandal. His misconduct became public knowledge, and the cracks in his pristine image grew deeper. At work, I was met with sympathetic glances and hushed conversations. Yet, I remained focused, using the chaos to fuel my determination. A week later, the police called again. Jack was officially charged with embezzlement, and Paige was facing multiple counts of fraud and assault. As I hung up the phone, a sense of closure settled over me. That evening, Evelyn and I sat on the porch watching the sunset. "It's finally over," I said, feeling the release of tension. "Yes, it is," she agreed, "and you handled it all with incredible strength." As we sat in comfortable silence, a figure approached. It was Zoe, carrying a bottle of wine. "Thought this called for a celebration," she said, smiling. "Absolutely," I replied, grateful for my friends and family who stood by me. We toasted to new beginnings, the future bright and filled with possibilities. The nightmare was behind me, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I looked forward with hope. Jack and Paige had met their reckoning, and I had emerged stronger, ready to embrace whatever came next. The aftermath of Jack and Paige's downfall brought a strange calm to my life. It felt like everything that once weighed me down had been lifted. My focus shifted entirely to my career, and the rewards quickly followed. Promotions, recognition, everything started to fall into place. One afternoon, I was in a meeting when my phone buzzed with a message from Mia. "Let's catch up. Need to talk." We met at the same cafe where my suspicions had first been confirmed. Mia looked visibly drained but determined. "Kenzie, thank you for everything. You handled this whole mess with such grace." I smiled, sipping my coffee. "I couldn't have done it without you and Zoe. How's Paige?" "Her hearing is next month. She's been cut off and has to face the consequences alone," Mia said, sadness and resolution mixing in her voice. "She made her choices," I replied softly. As the weeks turned into months, the legal proceedings took their toll on Jack and Paige. Jack made a few feeble attempts to contact me, but I blocked all his efforts. He was a chapter I was done reading, and I had no intention of going back. One evening, while working late again, a colleague, Mark Adams, knocked on my office door. "Still here, Kenzie?" "Yeah, just wrapping things up. How about you?" "Same. Listen, I was thinking of grabbing a coffee. Care to join?" There was something comforting about Mark. Reliable, kind, genuine. Sure, I could use a break. We walked to a nearby coffee shop, chatting about work, life, and everything in between. Mark's presence was a welcome change, a reminder that not all was tainted by my previous ordeal. Days turned into weeks, and our coffee breaks became more frequent. Mark's support was unwavering, wore a stark contrast to the deception I'd endured. One evening, as we walked back to the office, he stopped and turned to me. "Kenzie, would you consider maybe dinner this weekend?" It caught me off guard, but in a good way. I smiled. "I'd like that, Mark. I'd like that a lot." Our dinner date was a turning point. Conversation flowed easily, laughter came naturally, and for the first time in a long time, I felt genuinely happy. Mark was different, steady, caring, and supportive in a way that Jack had never been. Months passed, and as my relationship with Mark blossomed, I finally felt the scars from Jack and Paige's betrayal start to heal. Closure wasn't a single moment, but a series of small victories, of new memories replacing old wounds. One evening, as Mark and I sat on my porch, watching the sun dip below the horizon, he turned to me. "Kenzie, I want you to know I'm here for the long haul. No games, no lies." I looked into his eyes, seeing nothing but sincerity. "Thank you, Mark. That means more than you know." As the stars blinked into existence, I realized my life had come full circle. The chapters of betrayal and revenge were closed, replaced by hope and a genuine connection. With Mark by my side, I was ready to embrace the future, knowing that this time it was built on trust and mutual respect.